Looks like we're live. We're gonna have Paul from the Serious Report. He's gonna be coming on uh, later on. Well, at the top of the hour. As usual, I'm starting a bit earlier, um, as I do, as I like to say hello to everyone. Um, so let's start. Rudy just jumped off the sofa. He is here. So yeah, we're going to look at how China quietly announces it will back its currency with gold. I saw Paul posted this on X, and he's also made a video about it. But I want to talk to him about it because it's quite an interesting headline. And oh, here he is. He's come on early. Great. Hi, Paul. Hi, Paul. I'm live already. If you want to come on, I usually start a bit early. Well, he's muted. Oh, there you go. Hi, Paul.
Right. Hopefully I'm in.
Yeah, now I can hear you.
That's
Great.
good.
I usually start a little early just to say hello to everyone. We've got Dutch Libertarian saying good day, Mario. Happy Sunday. Ty Tib Senior, Chris Conman says hi, Mario and Rudy. Uh, yeah, Quadman 72. The usual suspects, Mark Sneed. Hi, Mario, Rudy, and fellow stackers. Paul Weens from Southern Manitoba. And yeah, Paul, how are you?
Yeah, well, fine. Yeah, melting in the heat here. It's very
Yeah,
hot where we are.
over here too. I just had the fan on, but I've turned it off because it's a bit noisy. You wouldn't be able to hear it, but I can.
Yeah, likewise. I had exactly the same problem. I've got an
Yeah,
office, but it's the problem is our house is quite an old house and the walls are ridiculously thick. So
yeah. Plus,
yeah,
here in the UK, it's not really worth having air conditioning because this happens just a few days of the year, really, or a week or two at the most.
yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to let the viewers know that the merchandise store is up and running. And it's one of the viewers actually of the channel that started it. And it's called the Rudy Collection. And it's got loads of merchandise. As you can see, we got hats, mugs, uh, cushions with Rudy. And I used to have Paul Teespring store, but the quality there wasn't very good. And yeah, so this has been a few years since we've had some kind of merchandise. Not everyone wants it, but some people have asked for it. So there you go. Just wanted to put that out there. The link will be below in the description of the video. Um, and I've got my one of the mugs here. This is a smaller mug. There's a bigger one. Anyway, Paul, maybe we could we'll wait a little bit to start talking about the gold situation in China because people are still coming on.
Sure,
But
no problem.
there are some other stories about gold, for example, and I'm concerned. Actually, I'm joking, but I'm concerned I'm not as uh, alternative anymore and contrarian because even now the FT is talking about gold glitters as mistrust spreads. And I think you've read this as well, haven't you? So maybe
Yes, I have.
touch upon that a little bit. And before I let you go over that a bit, just wanted to remind people of this, that this editorial that I cut out over 21 years ago, where they said gold was finished, the FT. So that's why I was saying I'm becoming less contrarian now. The FT is coming our way, Paul. They're having to change their yeah, their tune.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that there was there was always going to be an inevitability and a point where I think, in essence, you couldn't deny that there has been big changes in the gold market. We haven't seen just central banks in what I would call global south countries buying gold. We've seen central banks like Poland have bought significant amounts, Hungary and other countries, and increasingly it's very obvious that the idea of gold being seen as a reserve asset is now left, center, front, and right. It's everywhere, and actually as well to the detriment of the dollar or the US dollar, US Treasury complex, as I refer to it, which is increasingly not seen as a safe haven. And there are political reasons for that, which is particularly been in sharp focus this year because of Trump's policy. Whether Trump supporters like me saying this or not is irrelevant. It's a statement of fact. I know this. I talk to a lot of people who say they're very disappointed in his policy initiatives to do with tariffs. And of course, as we've seen, those policy initiatives have kind of not really come to fruition. There was claims, we'd have 100 nations signing up. They were queuing up to sign up deals. Well, it's not transpired. And even the deals they have signed, like with the UK, is pretty wishy-washy. There's no real substance to it. Also, there's claims about China, and I put on my podcast out on YouTube explaining why, in fact, that is a bit of a misnomer as well. But these policy decisions have gone a long way to discouraging people wanting to hold dollars or dollar denominated assets, but also, interestingly and correspondingly, there is being greater interest in holding gold and seeing gold as a reserve asset. Also, currencies, ironically, we've seen even the euro is sort of fared better in recent months when you compare that to the dollar. It's, I think, the strongest it's been in 4 years. But also there's strength and a desire to hold the yuan currency. But also, of course, other currencies as well have become significantly stronger versus the dollar, like the Swiss franc. I was trying to look back in history to find when it was stronger than it is now. And to be honest, I didn't go back that far, but I think I went back to the early 90s. And apart from a slight blip which happened in August 2011 during the whole sort of EU sovereign debt crisis, it's as strong as it has been in Swiss franc terms. So these are also indications of a weakness in the dollar. It isn't as though, and we have to be careful when we say this, that just because there's a weakness in dollar, everyone's diving into gold. That isn't the case, but still significant interest in holding gold and continuing to accumulate gold. And the only thing, of course, is we've yet to really see it take off in a really big way in institutional investors, although that is increasingly the case. And I think I've said this before on your channel, Marion. I've certainly said it elsewhere. There are two markets as far as gold's concerned. There is the market that everyone refers to and all the data that's published. And then, of course, there is what I refer to as the opaque market, which people are not aware of. Fortuitously, I've known people who deal in the opaque market for a very long time. So I'm able, to some degree, I don't know everything, but I know in very broad terms the kind of trade that goes on there. And that's where enormous tonnage changes hands
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
sovereign nations and high net worth individuals. And that's why if you go back to around 2012, for 30 consecutive months, 1,000 metric tons of gold went from the West to China and Hong Kong. So that was 30,000 tons,
Mm.
2.5 years. Now, you won't see that data published anywhere, but that's where enormous tonnage changes hands. And that market is being brisk and has been pretty vibrant for the last decade. It goes through spells where it gets a bit quieter, but And that's where you'll see huge tonnage changing hands, and you won't see that reflected in official data. And that's an important consideration when assessing gold markets and, who's currently potentially interested in buying it, holding it, or increasing their holding. But overall, I would say gold's had, for me, been a pretty positive market to be part of and has been pretty buoyant with
Yeah.
regards to the opaque markets for certainly the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, very interesting. The other thing I would say is that central banks, they don't really care too much about the price. They'll just keep buying. And the other thing is, well, Paul, I was reading some months ago the diary of Benjamin Roth. He's a lawyer during the Great Depression. And it's interesting that he talked about the fact that demand for gold was really huge, even though the price was going up because everything else was collapsing, even during a deflationary depression. People want gold because companies are failing and they don't really care much about price. Just have a look at a few questions here. Uh, I where is it now? Over here is asking Mario, are you prepping? Are you stocking up food and prepper items? To be honest, over here, I prep financially by with gold and silver. I don't live far away from the countryside, so I know some farms that sell yeah, sell stuff outside the system, like not through a supermarket. But I think, yeah, I mean, I prefer doing it like that. What about you, Paul? Do you think do you prep?
Well, not particularly, although, of course, as some people know, I have a newborn daughter who's now just over 3 weeks old. So we kind of did some prepping with regards to ensuring we have all the things we need for her for like 6 months in advance, just in case.
Yeah,
But on a personal level, rather like you, have access to markets with regards to food, produce. So, I mean, I have some stuff, but I don't go over the top. But I mean, we always have like a freezer full of food, but that's just what we do anyway.
yeah, yeah,
But I wouldn't say I've overtly prepped, but we do, obviously, since the birth of our daughter, have made some provision in that regard because obviously things are far more important from her perspective and her welfare than concerns about our own. I mean, I think one of the problems with it is, and I think it's a good idea in principle, but people have often done this and then they end up stockpiling stuff and then they're going, I'm going to have to use it up because it's going to reach its shelf life. Okay, if it's non-perishable stuff, it's not too bad. But
yeah,
yeah, and it's one of those things, eventually people go, well, I keep doing this and nothing happens. And it's kind of the law of sod that eventually, when
yeah,
people stop doing it, there
yeah.
could be a risk that there's a need to do so. But I can see some value in doing it. I wouldn't say we didn't have anything, but
Yeah, but the other thing, Paul, like where I live, I know my neighbors well. I know the people, the guy who runs like a local, that you call it a corner shop really
mhm.
well. So, and I'm really friendly with him. He even looks after Rudy when we have to go out for more than 2 or 3 hours, and he loves Rudy. So I think getting, yeah, being part of your community and knowing people and having friends, that's also important because you can help each other if there is a crisis. So anyway, there's another question here. Oh, someone's asking, does Rudy get royalties paid in silver coin for the sales of his counterfeit? Well, he gets bones. Yeah, he gets bones. He likes bones. Anyway, Mark with a K, what do you think the chances are that Germany and Italy will get their stored gold reserves back from the US, from the New York Fed? Uh, well, I'll answer this first and I'll let you answer, Paul, as
Uh-huh.
well, because I'm sure you're aware of this.
Yeah, yeah,
I think the Bundesbank and probably the Bank of Italy, they're probably not too concerned. It's like more the European Taxpayers Union. They are concerned, and a lot of politicians in Germany are concerned about it too, and also in Italy, especially the ones on the right. Um, so yeah, I think pressure could increase on the German government, the German central bank, and same with Italy to repatriate the gold that's left at the New York Fed. Uh, I don't know if you remember, Paul. I think for some years ago, before 2020, Germany asked for 300 tons from the New York Fed, and it took them 3 years to ship that. They still have 1,200 tons with the New York Fed. The New York Fed also is a private institution, so I would be concerned. Yeah, so I think it is for security reasons because the current administration and also previous administrations is not just Trump. They've used the dollar and the banking system as a tool, as a weapon for politics. And I think it doesn't get any more important than gold because as Greenspan said once, when there's chaos and turbulence and war in the world, there's only one way to pay your bills internationally, and that's gold. So I think we haven't heard the last of this, and I think it could really squeeze the market higher because I think the Fed dragged its feet last time for Germany because I think they use a lot of the other people's gold to lease it out. So they had to they couldn't send it back straight away because they had to go into the market and buy it very slowly in order not to let prices go up. So I'll let you chime in there, Paul, on that question.
Yeah, I concur essentially with what you're saying. There has been, yeah, the historical precedent with the Bundesbank and it's taking years to get gold back. That if it's there, you should be able to just phone up and go, yeah, can you send the gold? Okay, you don't expect it to arrive 24 hours later, but you would expect it to arrive in a few weeks, and of course it didn't, and we know why because the gold clearly wasn't there. And it had been leased out, or maybe it was not just leased out, maybe it had been sold, but it certainly clearly wasn't there. And they therefore had to replenish the stock and, as you say, not spike the price. But yeah, in recent weeks, we know that the politicians in Germany and Italy have been getting rather antsy about wanting to repatriate gold bars. I mean, there's claims, I think it was in the FT article, that the value was somewhere in the order of, I'm rounding figures up, about $250 billion worth. There's concerns amongst certain associations in Europe about Trump. They claim tampering with the Federal Reserve's bank independence. Well, we're not going to get into a subject of discussing the independence of the Fed or otherwise, but the point is there is growing concern. And I think also, of course, we had that situation early this year where a lot of gold was heading west on a temporary basis. A lot of it's now moved back out of the west and gone back to London or wherever else. And this was due to the fact of concerns to some extent to do with Trump's tariff policies and putting tariffs on physical gold and silver. It may not have entirely been the reason, but then kind of a lot of theories were doing the rounds. And
Yeah,
I think in the end, a lot of them had some mileage in them, but given a lot of that gold's gone back, I think it's wasn't really private investors stockpiling it as people perhaps thought it was. I'm not saying some of it wasn't the case,
yeah,
but we did see something similar happen at the start of the pandemic back in March, April of 2020. Exactly the same thing happened, but for sure, I think there's going to be more and more nations demanding delivery of gold, and I think this is part of comes back to this lack of trust in the United States. I think it's also why there's a lack of trust in the US dollar, US Treasury complex, why we're seeing I'm not going to blow this out of proportion, but there's been capital outflows out of the United States. Money's been moving into even Europe, ironically, or into the euro. It's also been moving to China,
Yeah.
to Southeast Asia, and also, of course, West Asia in the process. So I think if there's concerns about trust with regards to the US and regards to gold vaulted in New York, then I think increasingly you might well see countries saying we want our gold and we want it delivered ASAP. And frankly, I'd be amazed if it happens quickly. I think it'd be one of those, well, we'll drip feed it to you and you can get it in a year or two or three. I
Yeah.
mean, and the Preston happened with the Bundesbank previously, and I really don't doubt that we'd have a similar scenario again.
Yeah. So Paul, let's talk about the like title of this live stream, which is you made it. I'll bring it up here, and I'm also I would also tell the viewers because you've had your channel for a while, but for those of you who don't know, Paul is doing a lot more stuff on YouTube. I highly recommend the channel. And 3 days ago, you said China announces gold back to yuan, and this story isn't out there yet publicly. So could you tell us a little more about it, please, Paul?
Yeah, I'll preface that first because we have had people unsurprisingly getting in touch. And one of the all too familiar comments is, "Where's the source? Give me a link."
Yeah.
And as I've had to say to people over years, we have people we know, sources, people who are confidence, people who are friends, people in all over the world, in all jurisdictions. And the reason we have the relationship we do with them is because it's based on trust. Now, if I went and started going, well, I'm going to divulge all this, the source of things, I wouldn't have these people anymore. And they get very angry with me and say, Paul, what the hell are you doing? You've never behaved this way. This is not how our relationship works. And for sure that I was given information. They said, we'd be very happy if you would share it in the public domain. I also obviously have subscription podcasts, which ordinarily I would have put it in there and then maybe a month or two time put it in the public domain, but they asked if it could be put in the public domain. I said fine, but also shared it with them as well. Now, the gist of it is, uh, in very simple terms, that there is the Shanghai Gold Exchange that everybody probably who's listening is aware of, and they have these new gold trading contracts based in Hong Kong. And there is a new gold storage vault in Hong Kong as well. Now, in the future, it won't just be limited to Hong Kong. There will be vaults opened in other jurisdictions, and I've discussed this on my own podcast, not the YouTube public stuff previously, that this has been a stated intention for a number of years. Now, what I would say is, just as a sort of side issue, but an important one, there was talk and plans back in 2016 for China to do this very thing or something pretty similar with regards to having a gold backed yuan. The United States clearly weren't very happy about this, made some threatening overtures, and the whole thing went silent. Why is it different now? Because the world's very different. The United States isn't the country it was, whether people agree with that or not. I'm really not bothered. It's a statement of fact. It's not the hegemonic power it once was. And the United States is not militarily going to threaten China, even though I think a lot of people think there's going to be a war between the two countries. There won't be because they're both nuclear powers. And the United States never goes to war with a nuclear power for very obvious reasons. But I'm not going to get into that subject. But I'm mentioning it because this has been something that has been doing the rounds, and it was expected at some point some similar announcement would be made. So these contracts are being issued, and there's these designated warehouses in Hong Kong. And the sort of official statement is to further enhance the level of opening up the Chinese gold market, note to the outside world. That's the big bit. This isn't an internal market issue. This is saying, right, we're finally going to have a situation where we're really going to open up this market. We're going to offer new products. We're going to optimize delivery services. And they've set up this designated warehouse via the Bank of China, which is in Hong Kong. So basically, you can carry out physical delivery from these designated warehouses in Hong Kong. This is based on Shanghai Gold Exchange delivery guidelines. They've even offered exemption from storage, entry, and exit fees to try and encourage participation. But basically, what this is principally at this point designed for is not people like you and I. As retail, this is basically international trade. This is wholesale effectively. But what it will do and why it internationalizes the yuan and makes the yuan gold backed is if, for example, and I'm just picking an example to illustrate the point, doesn't necessarily mean it's absolutely the case. Well, we do know to some extent Saudi, uh, obviously, or China pays Saudi the yuan for oil. It's not huge, but it's been ongoing for quite a few years. Now, let's say as a result of this, Saudi accumulates a surplus of yuan. And ordinarily, people would say, well, what use is that to them? Well, it can be in terms of uh, Saudi taking that yuan and then investing it in China or in some projects, joint ventures. But this is the big important part now. A country like Saudi can take all that surplus yuan and it is fully redeemable in gold, meaning here's our yuan, we want gold delivery. Well, we could take it via a vault in Hong Kong, but at some point they will have a vault in Saudi Arabia. That's kind of partially in the public domain already. And so China will say, okay, we have vaults in Saudi. There is gold in there. Okay, here's our surplus yuan, Saudi, and we'll exchange it fully if you want, being fully redeemable to gold. Now, that is the very essence of what a gold-backed currency is. I know I've had people getting in touch going, no, it isn't. Well, look, I'm terribly sorry, it is. And, there's no point anyone getting into an argument about this. This is just a statement of fact. The important part as well with this is it's not going to be something that China's going to emblazon all over billboards, tell the world about, and sell it that way. It's something that's in place. Countries are aware of it. It is going to not only internationalize the yuan, but if you have the opportunity to take that surplus yuan and you can buy gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange, you can take delivery in Hong Kong or store it in Hong Kong, vault it anywhere you like.
Yeah,
I mean, that makes the yuan as well suddenly a currency that nations will be very happy to hold on that basis. The other thing is, and people have said, you can't do this because, and you can, and this is the big difference between why gold standards not entirely didn't work previously, but partially the problem. This is redeemable at market price, not at a fixed price.
I see. Yeah,
And that is a
yeah,
huge difference. So that will encourage for countries such as the Saudis or whoever else, Southeast Asia, to take these surpluses and therefore they can buy gold. And if it's a fixed price, it's not so attractive. But this is because it's at market price, and that still qualifies as being a gold-backed currency. Now, another point I want to make briefly is this kind of, for now, well, should put any idea of having a BRICS currency to the back of people's mind. Now, I've been very clear about this for several years. A BRICS currency will eventually come about, but look at the euro. The euro was a disaster because they tried to marry disparate economies like Germany in the north and Greece in the south. It doesn't work, and the same problems will be experienced with a BRICS currency. And given all the new nations that keep joining, The aim of BRICS initially, and it's been the case, and that's in the public domain, is to start by everybody trading in local currencies. That's the big driver. So BRICS currency will come at some point, not now, but the fact now that you can fully redeem the yuan for gold, I think probably means a lot of countries will go, well, I'll quite happily adopt the yuan on that basis. The other thing this does, of course, is it means the Chinese capital account is really open. Okay, it hasn't opened up their financial system in totality. That's a huge different subject, and the Chinese have got some way to go. And I've been not a, I won't say critical of it. I understand why they're reluctant to do it because they don't want to end up with having massive problems the West does. But at some point, if they really want to internationalize it, they're going to have to open it up more and more. And they are doing so in a very measured way. I have a feeling they'll start to open it up even more on the basis of this development. I mean, and therefore, if you look at the situation of where I would say a best description of the yuan is kind of either it's kind of soft fixed to the
Yeah.
dollar, not
Yeah.
not not hard fixed. But here's the thing, and this is what makes it interesting. If the yuan devalues with the dollar relative to gold, which it has been, then everyone's happy owning gold. But here's the difference. If you had now had the choice between holding dollars or holding the yuan, a lot of not people in the West, particularly, well, institutions or nations, sovereign nations, but in the global South, if you start to have the choice between holding dollars or holding yuan and holding yuan that's fully convertible to gold at market price, well, there's a logic that says there's going to be a interesting, I wouldn't call it stampede initially, but there will be a lot more uptake of the yuan in the process because of that, because it's far more advantageous than holding dollars. And of course, what this will do is cause significant stresses and strains that we're already seeing in the US dollar, US Treasury complex. Now, the argument is, and people say, well, why is the timing? I wouldn't read too much into the timing. I'm not trying to say China's trying to do this to stick it to the United States, particularly. That's not the Chinese mindset, but this is a huge development and we have to wait and see what the market and world reaction will be. But don't expect gold to suddenly spike as a result of this. It's one of those that's going to be a slow burner. I do know based on putting the YouTube clip out, we were made aware there was interest shown in this from in Canada, in the US, and in Europe. People looking at this going, what's this? What's going on? What's happening? Yes, is this a reality? And what does this mean for us? But it is the start of a very big development. And in the coming weeks, months, and into the future, I think you'll see the uptake of this opportunity to hold surplus yuan and being fully redeemable for gold. And that also just makes the yuan a far more attractive currency in some people's eyes or some nations' eyes than it may perhaps do already.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people here are asking, oh, how, what good is it to peg a currency if you have to unpeg? But as Paul said, they're not going to try to peg it. They're just going to leave it floating at the market. Um, I mean, I had heard of this as well, Paul, that they're even thinking the Shanghai Gold Exchange that they're trying to open also a depository in Saudi Arabia.
Yes,
I think they could
that's true.
open, yeah, elsewhere as well, the countries that they trade with the most. But what I would say as well is that eventually, if this gold settlement system increases, I would say that the relationship between the yuan and gold and other currencies and gold is actually probably going to stabilize a little bit. And it's maybe they're doing it the other way instead of fixing the price. They're just going to let the market and trading conditions set like a band. So, yeah. maybe that's what they're thinking. Let's have a look at some questions here, Paul. There's quite a few here.
Okay.
Uh, let's see. I saw one. I think I missed it now. Anyway, uh, William, PMCD, any comment on nuclear power going forward in the UK, USA, elsewhere? Well, let's see. Uh, Explain to me how it's any different than buying gold at the COMEX with dollars. Well, I would say that the United States, through the IMF and World Bank, they've discouraged countries from having gold. I think, isn't it the IMF, Paul, or the IMF even? Yeah, they don't allow member countries to back their currency with gold.
I
So
think that's the case. Yeah.
but now China is saying, well, we don't want to be part of this. We want to use gold and we want to back our currency with gold. And COMEX is not a physical market, even though this year there's been a lot of physical activity. COMEX was created, if you look at the WikiLeaks file from 1974, the Treasury Secretary, the Secretary of the Department of Treasury, excuse me, the Department of State, and the bullion dealers in London decided that the best way to make sure Americans didn't buy gold and hoard physical gold was to have a futures market. So that's what the COMEX is for, and to some extent the LBMA. Is that the way you see it too, Paul? And do you think Shanghai Gold Exchange and also other physical exchanges are chipping away at this paper game?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with what you said with regards to the LBMA and the COMEX. Now, with regards to the person's question,
Yeah,
it's a massive difference, and it's for the following reasons. With regards to the Shanghai Gold Exchange, I'm going to simplify this just to illustrate a point. If I go and have a contract for 1 ounce of gold, it is backed by 1 ounce of physical gold. It's a one-to-one relationship, guaranteed. So if I take my surplus yuan as Saudi Arabia and I go and buy, I don't know, let's just say I want to buy 5 tons of gold for our, then I can either leave it stored in Hong Kong. I can say to the Shanghai Gold Exchange, I want it delivered to my vaults in Saudi Arabia, and it will be physically delivered. There is none of this. Well, is it rehypothecated? Does it really exist? Is it really a physical market? It absolutely is. Now, there is no way the Chinese are going to start having a market that they're then going, well, I'm terribly sorry, you bought this gold, but you can't have it for 2 years because in reality we don't have it. That does not apply to this
yeah,
physical gold
yeah.
market.
There's
That's
some
the big distinction.
yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. There's
No,
some
no
people
problem.
here who don't seem to understand that this is not for like retail
No.
investors. This is between sovereign countries. Aaron White says that's his comment. He says if this is gold backed, then so is the dollar because you can take your dollars to the COMEX buy gold with it at the market. And he's saying this is the dumbest conversation. But have you ever tried to take delivery on COMEX, Aaron? And do you think COMEX would deliver thousands of tons to China? I don't think so. COMEX is not a physical market. And like Paul said, it's rehypothecated. And so is the LBMA. That's why the LBMA early this year in January, when Americans were trying to get physical gold from the LBMA, the LBMA was basically in default because their spot delivery, instead of being T plus 3 days, it was T plus 4 to 8 weeks. So that I think that's what Paul's trying to get across.
Yeah, and to the person who made the comment, there's nothing dumb about this at all. I'm sorry, but it is not at all in any way, shape, or form has any applicability to what goes on with the comment. or the LBMA. And it's absolutely not the case because if you were to actually, as Mario said, try to do this in the West, it wouldn't happen. Why do you think the Bundesbank took 3 years to get their gold back? Because it's not there. This is something where, let's say in the future, and I picked Saudi Arabia as just one example. In the future, China could have and has trade relations with 130 countries in the world. There might end up situations where 70 of those countries end up with a surplus of yuan in some way, shape, or form. And they will say, well, I don't want to hold the yuan, but I want to buy gold with this. And they go to the Shanghai Gold Exchange and they will get their gold immediately or
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
whatever the contract deems, whether it's 2 weeks, a week, a month, I don't know specifically at this point in time. That is a world away from if you, as nations, tried to do this and take your dollars and went to the Comx and the LBMA and started going 70 countries when I want to exchange this, they go, you can't do it. Terribly sorry.
Yeah. Well, they
We're
would.
not in a position to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So it is not at all remotely like that. It's completely different. And there is no other fiat currency in the world that says this is fully redeemable for gold anywhere.
Yeah.
Tell me, and if the to the person concerned, tell me where they say that because they
Yeah.
don't.
There's a comment here, Captain Scarlet. How can they back the yuan with gold if there's about 33 trillion pounds worth of yuan out there? Well, I'll answer that, and then you
Mhm.
can chime in as well, Paul. Back during the gold standard in the 19th century, uh, yeah, the pound sterling was the major reserve currency, was the main currency. And it was basically the banking system in the UK kept about 33% of the money supply, or the whole credit system was backed by gold. And it doesn't have to be 100% because yeah, because you buy and sell between countries, you make a small profit, and then you have a surplus or a deficit, so you don't have to have the full amount. And the other thing is, I think China has a lot more gold than the 2,300 tons that they officially publicize. And yeah, so that's how you can. And maybe, yeah, that's how you back the yuan. What it means is that whenever you have a surplus with China, you can either take those yuan and buy Chinese goods or invest in China, or you can also go and get your gold. And that hasn't been the case since the early 70s when Nixon closed the gold window. They've encouraged people to hold on to debt, to treasuries. And I don't think that's what the Chinese are encouraging people because they want to get off this. Maybe some people will hold Chinese government bonds, but I think they're focusing more on gold. So what do you say to that, to Captain Scarlet's comment there, Paul?
Yeah, well, I'd concur with what you said. I would add the following.
Yeah,
China has, I said back in around 2012, 30,000 tons of gold went to China and Hong Kong. Well, how much of that gold do you think is still in China and Hong Kong? China actually produces 600 metric tons of gold every year, and not a single ounce of it leaves China. China has massively more gold reserves than two. The idea they have 2,000 odd tons is a joke. They produce 600 metric tons a year and have done for, to my knowledge, at least 20 years. So there's 12,000 tons straight off. China actually has somewhere in the order of 40,000 tons of gold. Now, with regards to this idea of the impossibility of taking the yuan and making it fully convertible into gold, well, there's an issue we have to take consideration of here, and that's the price of gold in the future. What do we think may happen? Do we think at some point, and I'm putting this out there for people to think about, I'm not suggesting it will happen today, next week, tomorrow, but what about repricing gold? So suddenly, as far as China's concerned, and then we're going to reprice it at whatever yuan to an ounce of gold, or which ties in with whatever the soft fix is between the yuan and the dollar. I've heard stories. I had discussions with people over a decade ago about this, about repricing, and their feeling was that would be significantly more than what we currently see as the price of 3,400 or 3,300 in dollar terms. Now, that is an investment advice. I'm not telling people go and buy gold because tomorrow or next year it could be whatever multiple higher than it is now, or $1,000 or in dollar terms higher. Absolutely not. But I'm saying when this market becomes fully operational and functional, don't be surprised if you start to see the gold price repricing on the basis of this decision. And the other thing you have to bear in mind is, why do we think gold is now and at 3,000, well, 300 and something, let's just say 3,300, keep the math simple. It's not the West that's driving the gold price anymore, it's China. China's also driving the silver price. On the basis, why do you think they create these arbitrages? Because they are trying to drag as much physical gold and physical silver from the West to the East. This has been a stated intention for over a decade. China in 2020, 2021, 2022 bought obscene amounts of physical silver. And I'm not exaggerating in that. In one year, they bought 20,000 tons of it. It's stored in China. It's a matter of national security. It's a strategic asset. And they're accumulating silver not to back a currency or for in a monetary sense, that is for industrial purposes. But China is being a prolific buyer of gold for a very, very long time, and they will continue to do so. So again, this is back to what the opaque markets will not tell you, as opposed to, well, this month in transparent markets, apparently China bought 5 tons. Oh, they didn't buy any gold for 3 months or 6 months. China's always buying gold and always will and always has. And because, as China has very subtly said on several occasions, an official will suddenly go, well, gold's going to be an important part of our financial system in the future. Just a very simple statement, no detail provided. This is another example of not only, as I say, it will internationalize the yuan, but this is going to, in some way, shape, or form, start to impact the gold price, because that is partly the intention of, also from China's perspective, they want to create an enormous gold market in of itself. The Shanghai Gold Exchange is nothing to be sniffed at. They want to internationalize it. I mean, also not exclusively. In the Middle East, the Saudis are doing it. Even the Russians have got a gold exchange now. And it comes back to the point, and a lot has been said about repricing gold. I'm not going to get into that discussion because people throw figures around. I've never once, and I never will, throw a figure around, but at some point that is very likely to happen. So if the price of gold is repriced to something, China has enormous gold reserves and therefore can handle the throughput of those wanting to convert surplus yuan into gold. Then everybody's very happy. China does have a gold-backed currency. And as I said, it's redeemable at market price. That is the big difference. People said to me, that's not gold-backed. It's irrelevant. The
Yeah.
whole point is it should be at market price and not at a fixed price.
Yeah,
Having it
Paul.
at a fixed price was a disaster.
Paul, people are also asking about platinum, whether China is getting involved in platinum, and is that the reason why platinum has gone up so much in the last few weeks? Do
In
you,
all honesty,
I don't really follow
I
platinum
don't have a
either.
clue. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
I can go and try and find out
yeah,
whether that's the case or not.
yeah,
But as things stand, I can't answer the question because I
yeah. I
don't know.
can't either. Someone also commented about the UK. gold reserve. It's only 310 tons, but the Bank of England holds about 5,000 tons, but that's for other countries. Uh, and I guess, Paul, possession is the old saying is
Yes,
possession is
nine tenths of the law.
9/10 of the law. So I guess that's the only saving grace for the UK, but not really because the Bank of England is really not. I don't really think the Bank of England operates for the good of the UK. They operate more for the good of the bankers in London. So I don't think it makes much difference. So they'll never use that other countries' gold really to help the country itself. They'll probably use it to save their own skin. Is that the way you see it?
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah.
And
Someone is asking here, Paul, will accumulation of silver by the Russian central bank spread to other central banks? Yeah, I saw last year they announced they're buying silver and platinum as well, I think, or could be palladium. I don't think they're buying huge amounts, but who knows? Yeah, uh, maybe silver will again be accumulated by central banks, especially if the price goes up a lot to like into triple digits. It could be a good reserve to have. I don't know. What do you think, Paul?
yeah, I mean, look, I don't see any indication of silver being held specifically by central banks. That could change in the future.
Yeah,
I mean, but what I would say is we know India has bought enormous amounts of silver as well. And you can arguably say China has it's not stored at the central bank, but China has strategic reserves of silver. No one knows the official amount they have. It's huge. And okay, that's for industrial purposes, but we all know that in the future, the industrial application or the use of it, silver that is going to increase significantly. That's a statement of fact. And we know that there has been physical shortages in silver, and that is likely to be the case going forward. So, it remains to be seen. I know there's a lot of frustration for people with regards to the silver price. But for me, and this isn't investment advice either. I think everybody, a lot of people know I hold gold and silver. I'm not disclosing what I hold because that's irrelevant to anybody else. But I obviously hold it for good reason, and on a personal level, think that obviously gold's extremely important. But I think for me, holding silver relates to more to do with the fact that I think as an industrial metal, it has enormous application in the future. And if nations like China and India continue to mop up huge amounts of silver on an annual basis, there's
yeah,
going to be an inevitability at some point. There's going to be squeezes somewhere on physical supply. And if Russia's buying it as well, to some degree, and other countries in the process, that is only going to increase the likelihood of shortages. But I mean, silver's a popular metal for retail investors to hold, of course. Although I've heard stories in the last year or two that someone said to me there's been a lot of retail selling of silver. I don't know whether that's the case or not. But silver is bought in certain nations as a in retail terms as opposed to gold because it's more affordable for people.
yeah. Someone's saying here whether there's tax on gold to buy gold in the UK. No, there's
No.
no tax. There is VAT on silver, which
Hmm.
is 20% at the moment. But the first time I bought silver, yes, there was VAT, and I was a bit miffed. But at the time, it was below £4, and now it's like 27. So that 20% is irrelevant. Like not irrelevant, but it's insignificant now. And I think it's going to be the same thing. I don't think it should stop people from buying silver, the VAT in the UK. As per capital gains tax, there, if you buy coins of the realm, coins minted by the Royal Mint, there's no capital gains tax in gold or silver. which
Yes.
I think is great. And not many people know about that. And financial advisors, of course, they never advise people to buy real physical gold. Paul, I wanted to ask you because we've been talking about China becoming more and more friendly in terms of gold and allowing its trading partners to exchange the yuan for gold. Do you think that could push the Americans to do the same thing eventually? Or do you think that's far, far, far away from being a reality?
I mean, in this world, the way things are and how things can change, I wouldn't rule anything out. However, there's the big thorny subject. Does the United States have any gold at all? And that's a subject that I've had discussions with people for 15 years, maybe longer. And some people get very angry when you dare to infer it's not there. I personally would be amazed if the gold was there. Um, and that's based on conversations I've had with people in the past. Uh, but if the United States has gold, has 8,100 and whatever, 30 tons or whatever it is, and they do actually have it, then maybe indeed they could do something in the future. But as things stand, the argument would be if they went back to try and backing the dollar with gold, it really it's you know the US, well, the dollar hegemony's dead, it's gone. And let's be honest, look at the United States' inability to balance its budget. It just blows its budget. The budget's going to only, or the budget deficit's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, rather like the Vietnam War meant they had to go off the gold standard because they were just hemorrhaging huge sums of money and they're having to sell enormous amounts of gold.
Yeah,
They would do have to do exactly the same as things stand until they have a prudent fiscal policy. They're not in any position to do this. I
yeah.
mean,
I saw, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
go on.
I saw Bert Doman. He's an older gentleman. He was born in Germany during the war, and he's been an investment advisor for like since the 70s, and he got into gold in the bull market. He got out in 1980, and he recently spoke to ITM Trading, to Daniela Cambone, and she asked him about the U.S. gold, and he thinks that they actually ran out of all the gold they had, and that's why Nixon had to close the gold window. So he doesn't think they have any. And the thing that he said that makes sense is if they had all that gold, why can't they just do the audit? And
Yes.
yeah, it's very simple. The other thing Bert Doman talked about, which is interesting, and I'm not saying we're going to get this kind of conditions, but when the war ended in Germany, he was only a boy, and he said his parents still had these coins here, the Maria Theresa thalers, which were very
Hmm.
popular, silver coins, and he said they were able to survive because they had silver coins. And he said the kids in Germany World War II, with the rubble, everything, they used to basically go metal hunting, from all the destroyed buildings, and they used to make survive because they used to sell all the metal to the scrap dealers, and they could. That's the thing that worked. I'm not saying we're going to be in the war and have rubble around, but I think there's a really good chance of currency collapse, Paul. I notice everything seems to be getting more and more expensive, especially the stuff that we need to survive, like food, energy, uh, water, and many other things. And I think what's going to happen is, yeah, I'm not sure the central banks will, uh, yeah, rein in the money printing. How do you see it? Do you think we're going to have I think hyperinflation is just like a deflationary collapse. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's the way to, instead of destroying debt by defaulting, you destroy debt by collapsing the currency. How do you see it?
Well, I think it's an inevitability that at some point they're going to have to slash interest rates because we look at the pandemic. They absolutely panicked, had the proverbial aneurysm, and just printed trillions to cover every eventuality and make sure nothing blew up in principle. And there's an inevitability they will do it again and again. And if there's a serious problem in the future, they will have to immediately slash interest rate. They'll be printing money like there's no tomorrow because that's the only way they can. Well, it doesn't fix anything; it just blows things up even more than it's already blown up. So I see absolutely
Yeah,
zero interest rate policy back, just massive money printing.
yeah,
Interesting the point you mentioned about the guy Bert's talking about gold and it all gone, and that's why they closed the gold window. It's funny, someone had a conversation with me saying that very thing quite a few years ago. It's the first time I've ever heard it repeated. I've never mentioned it publicly, so that's interesting that it concurs with what he said. Now, I mean, does that necessarily mean it's correct? I'm not saying it isn't. But it's an interesting that someone else
yeah,
said
yeah.
precisely that thing to me.
And most people think that it was just the French who, sent battleships to New York Harbor to get the gold, but the British wanted their gold too. And I think they only got half of the gold that they supposedly could get. And yeah, so yeah, and there were two there are two things that they could have done, and I've read this because John Exter of Exter Pyramid fame, he used to work for the New York Fed, and at the time, um, it was Paul Volcker. He was Undersecretary for International Affairs at the U.S. Treasury, and he was a friend of John Exter. And he asked him for advice, and John Exter said the way to stop the gold flowing is either to uh, raise interest rates. Well, he said there's three options, I think. Raise interest rates and you stop the gold flowing out because people will want to hold the currency more and get more return. Or you devalue the dollar, right? So you don't have to pay out as much gold or you default, and they chose the default because politicians never want to raise rates. But anyway, there's a super chat here from Chris Conman. Thank you, Chris. And he says, Paul, after China announces their gold holdings backing their yuan, will they then ever call the US out on their 8,000 tons of gold? What would happen if they couldn't produce it? Thanks. Yeah, that's really interesting because for the US, there's all this doubt, and it's not just like people that are not in the US that doubt this 8,000 ton, well, it's 8,130, I think, ton
Mhm.
amount. Uh, Americans as well. I mean, even Trump some months ago questioned it, and there's all the talk by Elon Musk that we're going to do an audit, but that's gone out the window. And in China, the speculation is that they have more. So yeah, it could be a huge uh, have a huge impact. I'm not sure China would care about because just by announcing, or maybe they won't announce, like Paul said, but the more China becomes important in the gold market, I don't think they really care. I think the price of gold will tell the story. I'm not sure they're into like this kind of how can I say, yeah, show us your gold and things like that. Maybe I could be wrong. What do you think, Paul?
No, it's China doesn't care whether the US has got
No, they
eight
just care how
thousand
much
tons
they
or
have.
8 tons. You
Yeah,
know, and yeah, because at the end of the day, look, China's stated intention is they will never want to be a world reserve currency. There will never be another world reserve currency in the future. This is just not going to happen. You don't need to have one. You will have a number of currencies that will be utilized in international trade. I'll go out on a limb and say the ruble will at some point in the future. Now, people will laugh and go, how's that remotely possible? Well, Russia is the biggest resource base in the world by an absolute mile. It's barely scratched the surface in extracting those resources, and I'm not just talking about oil and gas. I mean, so I'm not saying exclusively the yuan and the ruble. There could be other currencies in the future that will become prevalent in trade or international trade, but China wants the yuan to be utilized more in international trade. And some may say, well, that's an attack on the dollar. Well, it is and it isn't. They're not going out their way to attack the dollar, as they said.
No.
The United States is doing a great job destroying the credibility of the dollar because they've gone around the
Yeah.
world trying to weaponize it repeatedly. So, on,
Yeah, I think China, sorry, Paul,
no, go on.
China is just like us, or like stackers, but it's on a countrywide basis. But someone asked Paul if they want to buy a house, what's the way to convert your gold into fiat? And then, well, the easiest way is to go back to the dealer that you bought the gold from, or go to other dealers, get the best price and sell it to them, and they'll credit your bank account with the fiat. And the person also asked Paul if the seller of the house would accept gold. Well, that you have to check with the person. I think Donald Trump once took gold as a guarantee for a business deal, if I remember well, some years ago. So it all depends uh, if, yeah, if it's something that can be done where you live. I don't know where you live.
Yeah, I mean, Mario's right. I mean, we don't know where you live, but let's say it's in the UK. If you want to sell your gold, then shop around. There are bullion dealers who'll buy it.
Yeah,
And some of them do offer a little premium over spot, even. Uh, I don't know if you're in the US, obviously you go to whatever gold dealer. Now, in terms of someone taking gold, to be honest, most people probably wouldn't because they don't understand.
yeah,
But if you were to come to me and say, well, I'd like to buy your house, I'm interested, I want to buy it. Will you take gold for it? Then
I
yes, I
I
would.
would I
I
would.
would take gold very
Yeah,
happily, but
yeah, yeah,
but Mario and I are not, you obviously listen, and people listening, we're not what the average person in the street would go, what? What? Why do I want gold? I want money.
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
their exact words were. I would want money, not gold. They'd say gold isn't money. I mean, it's back to the argument
yeah.
that
It's
people
all
don't understand
backward.
what
Oh.
currency and money is.
It's all backward. It's almost like with a lot of things, even with health, people think that taking prescription drugs is how you become healthy, but it's the other way around. It's through uh, living a healthy life and eating the right thing. Someone said here that Eric Young or King Kong 9888 would be a good guy to have discussing this, and I agree. I've been in touch with him lately, and right now, though, he's traveling across the U.S. and I think Canada with his family, so
Hmm. Yeah,
he
yes.
doesn't have
Yeah.
time to do this. But he said he'd love to come back when he's back in Hong Kong. Yeah, the original says gold is money. That's right.
Yeah.
Everything else is credit. That's what JP Morgan said. And I think he said that under oath to Congress as well, Paul.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
indeed. Absolutely. So,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, just to go back to the point with China, look, China is rolled out enormous amounts of initiative. Everyone thinks China's there to stick it to the Americans. They're not. But China's doing things that on occasions can have a detrimental effect on the United States. There's no doubt if China wants to internationalize the yuan to whatever extent it could be, and that's debatable, that is going to impact the uptake of the dollar. It's inevitable. But the United States has caused its own problems. If it hadn't weaponized the dollar, and it's done it over a number of years, we know with sanctions, but what I would say is the worst decision the United States could have made was to do with the Ukraine war and to say, we are going to freeze your assets. We're going to basically sanction the Russian central bank and we're going to sanction Russian bank. If you ever want to cause damage to the dollar or the US dollar, US Treasury complex, that's a great way to go about it. Should never have done that. Okay, I understand why there was a desire to do it, and we're not here to discuss the war specifically, but at times they've made policy decisions that the world's gone. We've had enough of the weaponization of the dollar. So if you come along like the Chinese and you offer full convertibility to gold with the yuan, countries are going to look across the world going, well, I like the idea of that. So I think I'll hold yuan instead of dollars. I mean, it's a statement of the obvious. So China will make policy decisions, and they are, it's like there's no doubt with regards to tariff policies and what's gone on. China is driving a hard bargain. It's caused the United States a whole raft of problems in things like you're not having rare earths or refined rare earths, and if you do, you're not having it for military application. And China has gone about trying to basically say to the Americans, look, if you want to be hostile with us, we'll happily do it back to you.
Mm.
But they're not going to actually go out there in the first instance and go, I know, let's find a way to really stick it to the Americans. That's not the Chinese mentality. They don't think like
No,
that.
they want to. I think they want to do business with
Yes, they do. They
the
would.
whole
Yeah,
world,
absolutely.
but unfortunately, I know the mainstream media is fake news. So, and I agree with a lot of the stuff that Trump has done and says, but at the same time, I think a lot of his well, his comments about China is more for domestic consumption. I also think that the United States they want to have good relations with China because we saw recently, Paul, that they had to kind of back down on some of the tariffs because the Chinese said, "Well, if you're going to do that, we're gonna not ship the rare earth metals that you depend on from us." And the reason China has a lot of 95% of rare earth metals, like mining and production, is because the West basically abandoned the because of this what's it called, environmentalism,
Yes.
climate
Yeah, yeah.
change. They don't want to mine for real things, and China did. So it's a little bit, and I think Trump wants to get that back. He has signed executive orders that he wants to dig, dig, or drill, but that's going to take years to. It's going to take at least 5, 10 years to get it up and running. Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah, it's also why the United States is really keen to have a lot of trade, strong trade relations with Russia. Why?
yeah,
Because they want Russia's resources, they want Russia's expertise.
yeah,
If you look at the Arctic, where the United States has got big ideas about going about drilling, they're going to need the Russians. The Russians are world's best at drilling in those regions. So they
yeah,
want the technology, they want the know-how, they want so they have a vested interest, and it actually makes sense for the Americans to normalize relations with the Russians on for economic reasons, trade reasons, because the US can utilize their resources. The US, of course, where does you think everyone thinks it gets its uranium from? The
yeah,
Russians.
yeah, Russia,
So
yeah,
if
yeah,
if the Russians suddenly said you're not having uranium anymore, the United States would be pitch dark
yeah,
very,
20,
very rapidly.
20% of US electricity comes from nuclear energy. So yeah, Paul, just one final question here. Someone's asking, and then we'll have to wrap up.
Hmm.
Is if we see gold repricing a lot higher with what's going on, maybe like China and the BRICS might announce something, or or these countries keep buying gold, and I think they're going to keep buying a lot of gold, like
Hmm.
they have in the last 3.5 years. Uh, the question is, how is that going to affect the U.S. stock market? Any view on that?
Gee. Well, I mean, we're back to this, the problem. If if let's just look at Western equity market, they actually operated on the basis of fair value, they wouldn't be anywhere near the price they are now. So the whole problem with Western financialization is all asset prices have to keep rising and rising and rising, because if they don't, then Western financial system collapses, the economy collapses, and it's basically game over. So the argument would be, and we've seen these kind of huge contradictions where the gold price is what it is. Has it impacted US equity markets? Not at all in reality. Will it do so in the future? Well, things will only be impacted when we have true markets, true price discovery, when a company's stock price actually mirrors their true fundamentals, because in no way, shape, or form is that true for the vast bulk of equity. So the argument, yes, of course, would have been if we'd had true markets and gold was, let's say, 3,300 an ounce in dollar terms. You would have expected equities to take a bit of a kicking. You would have expected equities to take a bit of a kicking by raising interest rates, but it didn't happen either because there's that much market manipulation.
Yeah, and there's also, I think, there's still a lot of currency money, well, currency and credit being created despite the fact they've raised rates. I've noticed
Hmm.
recently M2 in the US and many other countries is making new all-time highs. And if you remember, Paul, in 2020, M2 in most countries went through the roof. So all that money's still out there. Anyway, Paul, thank you very much for coming on and talking about this topic of China and gold. And I'd like to thank all the viewers as well. And yeah, I appreciate your participation.
No, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, and also to the viewers, I appreciate their questions. And I'm sorry that we couldn't answer all of them. We tried to answer as many as possible. So I wish everyone a great upcoming week. It's going to be a short week for the US because of the 4th of July. And we're going to get the jobs number Paul, on Thursday instead of Friday. That would be interesting.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Bye, guys. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye. And the stream here. You still there, Paul?
Yeah, I'm